In the 1990s, the average age of a first-time buyer in the United Kingdom was just 26. Fast forward to today, and that average age has climbed to 34, the highest in modern British history. And the picture gets even darker. At the start of the century, 59% of people aged 25 to 34 owned a home. Today, that number has collapsed to just 42%. And it raises a question the UK has never had to ask before. Has home ownership stopped being a life goal and become an impossible dream? Over the last 3 decades, the UK housing market has undergone a historical transformation. In 1990, the average home cost just over £57,000. By 2024, that figure had climbed past £288,000, an increase of more than 400%, while real wages rose by barely 20% in the same time. The result is a structural disconnect between income and housing costs. Today, the average house price is approximately 8.3 times the average annual salary, compared with 3.5 times in the mid-1990s. This ratio, known as the price-to-income metric, places the UK among the least affordable housing markets in the developed world. But house prices did not rise in a vacuum. They rose within a policy environment that encouraged them to rise, rewarded homeowners for sitting on appreciating assets, and punished those locked outside the market. This is not merely inflation, it is a systemic shift driven by incentives and decades of political choices. The UK faces a chronic housing supply shortage, one that has persisted for more than 40 years. According to multiple assessments, the nation needs to build at least 300,000 new homes every year to keep up with population growth. Yet in the last decade, annual construction has rarely exceeded 210,000. This gap accumulates. Every year the UK underbuilds by 90,000 homes. The shortage grows and prices rise further. Much of this stems from planning restrictions. Nearly 13% of England's land is designated as Greenbelt, a policy originally intended to prevent urban sprawl but increasingly criticised for freezing developable land near the cities where housing is needed most. In many regions, proposals for new housing are blocked or delayed for years, often by residents concerned about traffic, infrastructure, or changes to neighbourhood character. While these concerns are real, the cumulative effect is severe, a structural inability to build enough homes to meet national demand. The result is a system where scarcity is not an accident, it is policy. As home ownership became more difficult for younger generations, a new set of buyers stepped in: investors. Today, an estimated 19% of all UK properties are privately rented, compared with 9% in the late 1990s. Buy-to-let mortgages surged from virtually zero in 1996 to over 2 million by 2020. This shift reshaped the market. Investors, often with better credit access and higher capital reserves, compete directly with first-time buyers and often win. Foreign investors have also become a powerful force. In areas of London, up to 30% of new-build properties have been purchased by overseas buyers, many treating them as wealth preservation assets rather than homes. In a market defined by scarcity, investor purchasing amplifies price pressure. Homes become financial vehicles rather than public goods. Landlords outbid families, overseas buyers outbid locals. Between 2008 and 2021, the UK experienced one of the longest periods of ultra-low interest rates in modern economic history. For over a decade, the base rate hovered around 0.5% and sometimes lower. Low interest rates acted like fuel poured onto the housing market. Mortgages became cheaper, enabling buyers to borrow larger sums. This increased purchasing power pushed prices even higher. Meanwhile, savers saw little reason to keep money in the bank, making property even more attractive as an investment. But in 2022, the era of cheap money ended abruptly. As inflation surged past 11%, the Bank of England raised rates repeatedly, reaching levels above 5%, the highest in 15 years. For new buyers, monthly mortgage costs soared by 30 to 60%, instantly pushing home ownership further out of reach. For existing owners on variable rate mortgages, the sudden rise in interest payments triggered financial stress, repossessions, and a wave of forced sales. While house prices skyrocketed, real wages stagnated. The average UK worker earns only £2,000 more today than they did 2 decades ago. Meanwhile, the cost of living, especially rent and energy, has risen sharply. In 2023, rental prices increased by 6.1% in a single year, the fastest rise on record. For many young adults, over 36% of their income now goes directly to rent, well above the traditional affordability threshold of 30%. When wages stagnate and living costs rise, saving for a deposit becomes an almost impossible task. A typical first-time buyer now needs around £60,000 for a deposit, more than double the amount required in 2005. This financial strain has reshaped social patterns. More adults in their 30s live with parents, families rely on intergenerational wealth, and young people are locked into perpetual renting. Housing policy in the UK has long been shaped by political incentives. Homeowners vote at higher rates than renters, and rising property values create the illusion of economic success. As a result, governments of all parties have been reluctant to implement policies that could significantly reduce prices. International pressures also play a role. London's status as a global financial hub has attracted investors seeking stable stores of value. This global demand pushes prices upward, even as local incomes stagnate. It is an international flow of capital colliding with a domestic shortage of supply. This resulted in a policy where housing becomes entangled with geopolitics, finance, and the priorities of capital rather than citizens. Homeownership among 25 to 34-year-olds has fallen from 59% to 42% over the last 2 decades. This is not merely an economic crisis, it's a social one. Homeownership affects family formation, wealth accumulation, community stability, and long-term economic security. Entire life plans are delayed or abandoned because of the impossibility of entering the housing market. As renting becomes the norm, wealth inequality widens. Those with access to family support climb the ladder. Those without remain stuck at the bottom. This is the long-term legacy of a system that has failed to balance public need with market forces. Homeownership in the UK has not become impossible by accident. It is the outcome of decades of constrained supply, speculative demand, political inertia, global financial pressures, and economic stagnation. For millions, the dream of owning a home is no longer a milestone, but a symbol of a system that has left them behind. The question now is whether the UK will choose to reform this system, or whether a new generation will inherit an economy where housing is no longer a foundation of life, but a luxury reserved for the few.